A famous Hollywood actor shows up at a maximum security prison, not for a movie role, but to teach debate? No one believed it. Guards thought it was a joke. News outlets whispered about a weird humanitarian project. But only one man truly knew why he had come, and why it had to start here, in the very place where voices were once silenced the hardest. Prison. Johnny Depp, 61 years old. No longer the man walking red carpets or surviving courtroom chaos. Now he quietly steps into Reading Federal Prison. No stage, no spotlight. Only people society has buried under prejudice. But this is where he chose to launch something different. Reframe a debate program for inmates. Not to teach speaking, but to teach the art of challenging without destroying. To teach how to question before judging. To teach how to defend the truth, even when no one believes you. At the first class, no one trusted him. Inmates were cold. One even said flat out, "You here for a feel-good article, man?" Johnny didn't react. He just quietly opened the folder on the table. 7 pages of legal history, 3 court trials, 42 false news headlines. Then he spoke. "I'm here because I was once condemned, without a sentence. And I know, sometimes what we need most isn't to fight back, but to truly listen." For 5 minutes, the room went still. And in that moment, for the first time, Reading Prison didn't echo with clanging locks, but with something faint, like hope. In this room, how many of you have been convicted of something you didn't do? Johnny asked. His eyes held no judgment, no blame. 20 men stayed silent. 1 man laughed from the back. Buzz cut. Big building. Black sunglasses. Arms crossed. "Man, everyone says that. What, you think you're a judge?" Johnny didn't laugh. He pulled a chair and sat across from him. "Number I'm someone the world called a liar just because I didn't answer fast enough on camera." Now, the room started paying attention. That man was Miguel Reyes, former gang leader. 15 years for something he said he just witnessed, didn't do. Johnny didn't ask if it was true. He asked one thing. If that day, you were given a full chance to speak, no interruptions, no shouting, no one cutting you off, would you have said something strong enough to change the verdict? Miguel said nothing. No jokes, no fists, just a long pause. And then, a tiny nod. Johnny stood, faced the room. Debate isn't about winning. It's about surviving. In a world that rarely gives you time to explain. Miguel was the first to raise his hand next class. Not because Johnny was famous, but because he learned one thing. When you have no weapon, words, if trained, can be your last shield. What's Hollywood doing here? We don't need your pity. The voice sliced through the classroom. Sharp, unfiltered. The man was Marcus Red Daniels, 39 years old, former gang boss, prison sleeves rolled up, arms covered in tattoos, eyes locked on Johnny, ready to pounce at any sign of weakness. The room tensed. Some students looked up. Some held their breath. Johnny didn't flinch, didn't rush a reply. He slowly opened the file on the desk, turning pages like searching for something, not to fight, but to share. Then, he stopped at a faded photograph. Edges worn, colors aged, a rundown prison, stone walls, rusty steel bars. He lifted it up and softly said, almost like a whisper, "This is where my father was imprisoned. Bin dokuz, yüz yetmiş dört. I didn't come to pity you. I came because I once lived in silence, and I want to understand what makes a man decide to break it." It wasn't a speech, it was a confession. And in Marcus's eyes, the glare that once saw Johnny as an outsider cracked just a little. By the 3rd session, the room no longer felt like a prison common space. It became something else. A courtroom without a judge. A place where every voice had the right to debate. Johnny didn't rally the room. He didn't preach like a professor. But every time he spoke, the room fell silent. Because what he said didn't come from books. It came from someone who had once been silenced by the world. The topic of the day was, can morality exist inside a prison? Some inmates pushed back immediately. In here, only the law of the strong matters. Johnny listened, then quietly asked, but if the weak can use words instead of violence, does that law still hold? He never gave answers. He asked questions that made people confront themselves. That day, Caroline, a former CFO convicted of laundering money, who had stayed silent until then, finally spoke up. You're not a lawyer, but the way you argue feels like one. Where did you learn this? Johnny looked at her, then smiled. Not a smug smile, but the kind that carries a painful truth, refined into quiet strength. I learned it from the trials where I sat, on the defendant's side. And for a moment, every gaze in the room changed. They no longer saw him as an actor or an outsider. They saw him for what he truly was, a witness to justice, to pain, and to the possibility of hope. On the fifth day, for the first time, the class topic didn't come from Johnny, it came from Caroline. Can a person truly change, or is evil something that never leaves? The question wasn't philosophical, it wasn't poetic, it was raw, because everyone in that room was living that question, every minute, every day. Marcus spoke first, no prep, no notes. I stabbed someone when I was 19. I'm 39 now. The scar is still here, and that mother doesn't have her son to hug every morning. He paused. The room fell silent. Then one by one, inmates began to speak. Each story, a broken mirror, reflecting guilt, but also the desperate hope for redemption. Johnny said nothing. He simply listened, as if hearing a quiet, aching symphony played on the edges of human flaws. Only after the class packed up did he finally speak. He didn't stand at the front, didn't raise his voice. He sat at the first desk, eyes distant, as if remembering something long buried. I was once a man the world despised. I lost my job, my friends. I was branded forever. Until one day, I got a letter from my daughter. One sentence. Dad, are you still alive? He paused. That question pulled me back from the edge. No one replied. No one needed to. Because in that moment, the classroom wasn't a classroom. It was a place where truth finally spoke, and everyone understood. Sometimes what saves a person isn't the law. It's the right question asked at the right time. By the third month, the prison held a selection round for the National Inmate Debate Competition, sponsored by the Department of Justice. It was a stage unlike any other, where inmates could showcase their transformation, not through medical records or behavior scores, but through reason, through argument, through words. No one expected Marcus to be chosen, the same man who once challenged Johnny. The one who said, kind words don't help you sleep in here, was now the sharpest debater in the class. He led discussions like a trained prosecutor. The competition theme? Is society truly fair, or only fair to those who've never made mistakes? The day before the event, Marcus refused. I'm not worthy, he said. My past still haunts me. I don't deserve this. Johnny didn't reply with arguments. He placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. No pep talk, just understanding, deep and honest. Then use that past, he said slowly, to protect the future of people like you. Not to erase it, but to transform it. The next day, Marcus stood in front of the prison's webcam. No script, no reading. He simply looked into the camera and spoke from the heart of a man who had once been judged, once been left behind. Real justice is when you don't have to hide your wounds just to be heard. When he finished, the judges sat in silence. Not because they had no rebuttal, but because sometimes an argument doesn't need to win. It just needs to reach you. That day, class ran later than usual. Outside, the prison yard lights had already come on. Inside, only the warm glow of an old desk lamp filled the room. Caroline hadn't left. Johnny stayed too, as if both knew something still needed to be said. She sat beside him, arms wrapped around a stack of unfiled papers. Then suddenly she asked, no judgment, no politeness. Why are you so patient with them? Johnny looked at her, a pause. Then he answered, no embellishment, no defense. Because once, a lawyer believed in me, at a time when the whole world didn't. He didn't ask me what I had done. He asked, what do you want to do next? Johnny glanced out the barred window, where the yard lights cast harsh grids of shadow across the wire mesh, like hands trying to block the light. I'm still alive because of that belief. Now I just want to pass a little of that on. Not a lot, just enough to keep their fire from dying out. Caroline didn't speak, not because there was nothing to say, but because she understood. Some lessons can't be taught through curriculum. They can only be passed on through presence, through real listening. That night, no one took notes, but something far more valuable was written, a bond between teacher and companion, not built from credentials, but trust. 3 days after the debate, the prison warden called an emergency meeting, not because of trouble, but because of impact. The video of Marcus's speech had made its way through the entire state's prison leadership circle. No one ordered it, no one forced it, but something in it had touched them, something no rehabilitation report could ever measure. Then came a decision never made before. We're opening 3 more debate classes, not to argue, but to learn how to listen. When the announcement was made, Johnny didn't speak. He didn't stand, didn't bask in any spotlight. He simply submitted a short proposal, just 3 lines. I propose we hold regular mock trials where inmates take on the roles of prosecutor, defense attorney, judge, and defendant to train legal reasoning and to understand the true weight of an accusation. Caroline read it, then looked up. This idea isn't just good. It could be a national model. Johnny smiled, not because he was praised, but because a seed had finally sprouted. And for the first time in years, inside a place that cages freedom, people began learning how to set the mind free. It was Johnny's last morning at Ravenhill. No applause, no farewell ceremony, just another day, except for one small thing. He stopped by the old classroom, the one where he had spent weeks quietly listening, guiding, and believing. He opened the small drawer by the window, his usual seat, where he'd prepare lessons and sip weak coffee in silence before class. Inside was a folded piece of paper, no name, crumpled edges, ink smudged, handwriting rough and shaky, but every line struck deeper than any textbook ever could. You didn't teach me how to win arguments. You taught me how to forgive myself. It wasn't long, it wasn't polished, but to Johnny, it wasn't just a thank you. It was a sign that someone, even from rock bottom, can rise again, if someone else is patient enough to wait at the edge of the darkness. Johnny folded the paper, placed it in his wallet, not as a keepsake, but as a compass, a quiet reminder that the most precious thing one can leave behind isn't fame, but light in someone else's dark. Johnny left Ravenhill the same way he arrived, quiet, without headlines, no journalists, no viral posts. But this time, he didn't return to a movie set. He walked straight into Caroline's office, where sunlight spilled through glass windows and unfinished drafts lay scattered across the desk. He placed a thin folder in front of her. No leather binding, no official seal, just a plain title typed in a simple font. Debate for Redemption, a proposal to expand rehabilitation, debate programs across state prisons. Caroline skimmed the first few lines, then looked up. You want to fundraise? Johnny shook his head. I don't need money. I need space to replant this seed. Not because I'm Johnny Depp, but because there are other men like Marcus, waiting for someone to believe they deserve to learn how to use their own voice. Caroline stayed quiet for a moment, and in that silence, he was no longer a guest, no longer a star, just a man who had once been heard and now wanted to help others be heard too. Ravenhill was no longer the destination. It had become the departure point, and for the first time in years, Johnny felt like he was coming home. Not as a celebrity, but as a keeper of light. 1 month later, the classroom in Block C, where Johnny had once taught his first sessions, welcomed a new group of students, new faces, new stories, but the same eyes, worn, wary, and beneath it all, a deeply human hunger to be heard. They entered the same old room, no schedule on the board, no subject title, only one sentence written in soft black marker, leaning slightly across the whiteboard. Justice isn't about punishment, it's about a chance to begin again. In the back row, the same wooden desk, a single chair, and on it, a black leather notebook already opened. The first page read, "Every person has a voice, and sometimes they have to pass through darkness to learn how to use it." No one sat in that chair. No one dared move the notebook, because everyone knew that seat once belonged to someone who didn't come to teach or to inspire, but to do the hardest thing justice can ever do, not to judge, but to give back the right to begin again to someone who had once fallen. From that day on, the notebook remained there, a quiet symbol. And every time a new student opened it, they would find short handwritten notes at the bottom of each page. No name, no signature, just a message to the next person. If you're reading this, it means you haven't given up yet.